Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Mesa City Council study session for Monday, April the 1st. Councilmember Goforth is unable to attend and is excused from this meeting. Council Summers is attending virtually. Welcome, Councilmember Summers. I see your smiling face on the Zoom screen. Item one.
That is a good photo.
Item one on our agenda for this meeting is to review tonight's agenda for our formal council meeting. So I know it was just a few days ago we went through it in some detail, but council, any additional questions regarding anything on tonight's agenda? I know we took off, the only thing we took off of the consent agenda at our Thursday morning study session was going over the heat relief program, and that was really just to give it some an opportunity to for exposure and to tell people what we're doing. Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Mayor, do we have any cards on 5C that have come in, any blue cards or anything?
I have not received any cards.
Okay, let's pull that off consent, please. There might
Okay.
be some public comments.
5C is
the cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else that people would like to have off consent? All right, hearing none, moving on. Item 2A is a presentation and discussion on the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department budget. Andrea, good to have you with us.
Good afternoon. All right, Mayor, Council, Andrea Moore, Director for Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities. And I'm here to kick off our department presentations on our proposed budgets. Go through a series of slides here, and please let me know if you have any questions as I'm going through. Reminder about our mission statement is to make sure we have alligators and crocodiles at Riverview Lake. No. We are working to create a healthy and vibrant community with exceptional services and experiences to those who live, work, and play in Mesa. And we drill that down to 3 commitment statements of being responsible stewards, providing safe places, and continuing to evolve our programs and facilities to meet the needs of the community. A couple of our performance measures to highlight. I put this one in as we've had a few conversations about the 10-minute walk to a park. And it's a busy slide, so I'll break it down a little bit for you. The big map in the main part of the slide shows where we're meeting recreational needs across the city with both city facilities and homeowners associations. And so the gray areas are the areas that are not served by a private or a public park. And then the yellow areas are underserved. So what that means is we have about 95% of the population that's within a 10-minute walk to a park. That's great. It's about 20,000 people. 20% of our land doesn't have some type of park feature within it. And then the areas that are underserved have to do with whether there are access to 5 components or more of recreation within that walking distance. So a component typically is a playground, a ramada, an open grass space, a court, a walking path. Those are our typical park amenities, and our goal is to have 5 of those within a 10-minute walk. So we're at about 65% of the city that has access to that amount of diversity in recreation facilities. But overall, we do have quite a bit available, and we're continuing to evolve our park system to provide that more complete service level for recreation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ms. Duff.
Oh, is this the point that I asked for pickleball courts in downtown Mesa? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just saying I don't have. No. So, is there any analysis? I don't know on the parks ratios and such. Is there any ratios on density of population and percent of open space? Any correlation to that I know in some, like, planning of buildings and stuff, sometimes it's like, you have X amount of density in this building, you should have X amount of open space, you know, for a healthy environment. I don't know if we look at those kind of things in the parks.
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, we don't have a standard like that because we're looking at types of amenities. And when it's a denser part of the city, those amenities may be in a concentrated location or spread out a little bit, but we're looking for people to have access to that amount of diversity and activity,
Okay.
but not a
About open
particular amount of
space,
density.
yeah. Okay, so activity more than open space?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Andrea, there's certain parts here that are gray, and I'm thinking, you know, I don't feel bad about the Gateway Airport, you know, not having a walkable park, right? Or maybe around Falcon Field. There are some where they're industrial areas, they're not residential areas, and I don't know that we'd ever really need to aspire to have parks that, you know, are adjacent to those non-residential areas.
Correct.
So when we're talking about how far behind we are, you know, 20%, I mean, do we take into calculation that there's some part of our city that we're not planning on serving with parks?
We do take that into account, and that's why you look at both the percentage of area of the city that doesn't have a 10-minute walk to a park, that's 20%, but it's also 20,000 people. And so we did take into account where the population centers are, but we try to put higher impact, more intense uses in more industrial areas. So sports fields that draw large crowds make sense in an industrial area. It's not that we would never put a park in that location.
right.
It just wouldn't be something that you could walk to.
Andrew, can I say it, correct me if I'm saying this a different way. Out of the 20,000 people live in Mesa, are you saying it's only 20,000 that don't live within that distance?
Correct.
So that's, we could flip that into a percentage, right? But if you think about that, 500,000 people live within a walking distance and only 20,000 do not.
Yeah.
So that's, maybe the other way to say is there are 500,000 people in the city of Mesa who live within 10 minutes. So it's just, am I?
That's correct.
Okay.
And we value the homeowners associations that put those facilities in place for their communities too. We would not want to duplicate that. It's, when we look at the national metrics to compare to other cities, there is a push to have it be a city-owned, city-controlled facility, and we don't try to do that. We look at where the homeowners association facilities are, who has access to those, and then whether we need a city facility in order to bridge a gap if there is a gap there.
Now, you also know, notice, Mayor and Council, the staff has also, rightfully so, carved out all the county islands. So when you get to kind of central and then certainly northeast, you see all that cottage cheese carved out. So sometimes people driving in Mesa don't realize that's not Mesa, but we've done that. And then this doesn't take into account, which I think a lot of Mesa residents benefit, are some of the county parks that are only minutes away from, you can't walk there, but they're
County
pretty very
parks and the forest, Tano National Forest, are significant resources.
Right. So how many parks, including HOA parks, are there in the city of Mesa?
Stump me on that one. I don't have
Okay.
that number off the
All
top
right.
of my head. We're at about 215 city parks, so that's basins that don't have anything other than turf to play on, as well as parks that have playgrounds and ramadas in them. I don't have, oh, yes, I do. I did write it down. 1,200 recreational sites for homeowners associations, and then about 215 are city.
Wow, okay, so 1,415.
Right.
So do we consider a retention basin a park?
Yes, Councilmember Duff, we do, because it's being used for play, drop-in play by the neighborhoods. So that's why open turf is one of those 5 components that we look at as a recreational amenity.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sorry, this is probably in your presentation, but how many venues do we have that are climate controlled?
We have 5 recreation centers, climate controlled, so you're not speaking of our pools, just
No,
our
I'm
recreation
talking
centers?
about-
Indoor, Jefferson,
Yeah, indoor.
Broadway, Red
Yeah,
Mountain.
if it's July and it's
Those-
110 degrees outside,
Yeah,
how many
those-
locations are usable, at that?
Right, Mayor, we have 5 indoor recreation centers.
Great.
For 500,000 people.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, we interrupted you. Please proceed.
The next metric I want to show you is our reach for our programs, and this is split over 2 screens. But the chart on the left breaks it down by our smaller programs, so that's number of people that are participating in those programs on an annual basis, and it's continuing to grow. On the right, those are our larger facilities that also draw crowds for spectating, and those numbers include that. And so when I look at those together, our reach into Mesa is about 1.2 million people annually, either participating in our programs or watching an event at one of our facilities.
And they could be duplicates,
They could.
the different people, or different programs, same people.
A swim lesson 5 times a week would have 5 visits, right?
I feel like I go to about 1 million youth soccer games a year, so I might be,
You're double,
I might be responsible for a lot of those. Yeah. Let's go Duff and then Spilsbury.
So on the previous slide, and on the right side, year 2023, there's a big fall off on sports fields. I don't know.
Right. Councilmember Duff, we had some changes in our reservations that year and some turnover in our staff. So I think there were fewer reservations on our fields that year, and it's turning around again now.
So 24, it's going to be about these numbers?
Right, I expect them to be.
Okay, thank you.
Well, maybe my question has to do with that. But, so I was noticing the huge drop from 2021 to 2023 in the youth and adult sports. I'm wondering why that's like half the amount. In the royal blue,
Right, and it's the turnover in the staff that we had
we just couldn't offer as many team programs or something?
and didn't have as much participation. We weren't doing quite as much marketing at that time. So
Okay. And so do we know what 2024 numbers should look like? Will that drastically increase, or are we just slowly making our way back up to that number, or?
Councilmember Spilsbury, they are growing, but we're also just at the beginning of spring. And
Right.
spring and summer, early summer is when we really see the most amount of participants in that.
Do we have staff, though, to have a
We
bigger
are fully
capacity for
staffed
those? Okay, so we have the capacity to get numbers like that if
Correct.
if it was
Andrew,
desired.
It's had to be very competitive, and just the labor costs and competing for teenagers are a hot commodity out there, so trying to keep up with, the other options they have, so
We are, we think, fully staffed for this summer, though. So the changes we made in our salary structure, after we looked at benchmarking the part-time staff across the valley, we made some adjustments there, and we are very competitive now as far as recruitment goes.
Okay.
So you're not advertising for any lifeguards right now? You're fully staffed?
We are fully staffed. We're just in the process of onboarding them, getting them through their training and their pool assignments.
Great.
Third one I'll show you, just because we'll talk about it in another slide, is our special events office. And so generally, since we started the special events office, we launched it in November of 2022. We've got a full year now of running citywide events through that office, and the demand is continuing to increase. So these numbers are the ones that come through the Acela program with special event licenses, so they could be on city properties or private property. And we're tracking right now for this fiscal year to end at about 280 events. Our work plan for the year, the main parts of our master plan that we're focusing on are asset management, So that's running our work orders, looking at how often we're touching our different assets for maintenance and programming the infrastructure replacement of those. The feasibility study and cost estimates for the 2024 possible bond program. We took a look at our affiliated youth groups. So we had different names and we've narrowed it down to make it consistent across the board. CYG's, community youth groups, were used on our sports fields before, and coalition teams were used in aquatics. And so when we took this deeper dive into eligibility and participation, they're now called affiliated youth groups. Recreation program plan, we're working through that as we've gone through our last season last year and moving into this season to be more intentional about the types of programs that we're offering and what the cost recovery is looking like for those different programs. Convention Center strategic plan, that's out right now. Bids are due on the consultant to do that planning process next week, the 11th, I think. Fees and charges that you're adopting today and cost recovery rates based on the type of program, and then the Mesa Public Schools intergovernmental agreement for cooperative use of our facilities is close. I think we're going to have it ready for you to review in May.
You're going to talk more about that because that's a big shift for us.
That is. It's been a effort that's been going on for many months, lots of meetings with Mesa Public Schools to get to the point where we're both comfortable with how we're using each other's facilities. And that is really changing on the pools. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes too.
Well, in addition to use of facilities, it seems like sometimes we mow each other's grass, when it comes to youth programs or, there's competing fifth grade basketball programs. I mean, is that part of the IGA as well? We're
Mayor,
gonna
that
divide
was
up
part of the
turf?
discussion, is to get to the point where we're cooperating and coordinating on a better basis on an annual go-around. So basketball, for example, Mesa Public Schools wanted to get out of the youth basketball programs and turned all of that over to us to run. But some of the gym sites are still school sites, some of them are rec centers.
That's great.
All right, so on to the number slides. First is parks, recreation, and commercial facilities. So that's our convention center, cemetery, golf course, the post. These are expenditures and revenues. First column is where we ended last year, fiscal '23. Second column is our revised budget for this fiscal year. Third is our year-end estimate. And then finally is our proposed budget for fiscal year '25. So generally, when we're looking through these numbers, and then the revenue is in the bottom half of the chart, we're still seeing amazing participation and increases in our program utilization, the convention center bookings, the amphitheater concerts, all of that's continuing to increase. And on the recreation side, if you look at the difference between fiscal year '24 year-end estimate for recreation at 10.1 million compared to our proposed budget of 13.8, that's getting into this change on aquatics. Mesa Public Schools is not able to fund the utilities on the pools. And so what we're looking at is how to have them cover just the cost for their programs. And the city takes over utilities as of July 1st. So this increase is included in that. And then we had some shifting in funding balance between resource management and recreation, where we're shifting some of our budget capacity into recreation. That's also, you see resource management going down a little bit from 30.9 to 29.2 million, because part of that goes into recreation then, as we've looked at just where to put our resources, what makes the most sense. The next slide is facility maintenance. And so that has our district cooling maintenance of the plant over by the Mesa Arts Center, facility maintenance, and then our contracted services, which is so much of what our budget covers on landscaping, custodial, pest control, window cleaning, all of that. And as we've looked at that, we discovered there's a difference here between fiscal year '24 end-of-year estimate on contracted services and landscaping compared to fiscal year '25 proposed budget. So we have been for several years now covering a shortfall in our operating budget on facility maintenance with some of our project funding. And so we were running short on covering all that, the contracted services to the tune of about 2.75 million. And so we're adjusting that so that we can cover contracted services, not reduce what we're doing to take care of our buildings, and still fully funding our infrastructure replacement program. So that's what the difference is there. So on the park side, back to the park side, we have 4 budget adjustments that we're proposing. The first is in our adaptive program. We're to increase our staffing. We've added more inclusive services. It's primarily sign language interpreters in our mainstream programs when participants need that additional service in order to participate. And so we never had a staffing structure in place to be able to assess when a parent requests that level of service, and then a budget to be able to provide that service. So this is addressing that. And then also as a service to our participants who receive state assistance for providing programs and opportunities for their children that have developmental disabilities. There's a grant that the state provides to us because of some of the participants qualifying for it. But the paperwork in order to do that has gone from turning in a spreadsheet to essentially medical billing. And so we needed additional staffing resources in order to cover that and continue to make that funding source available to our families, primarily in Camp Fiesta. The next one is special event staffing. I mentioned that the special event requests are increasing, and so we had a part-time staff person that we're requesting to go full-time just to help cover the volume of those requests. And then the aquatics change with Mesa Public Schools. And so as I mentioned, they do not have a funding source to cover pool utilities, which is the arrangement that has been in place since the mid-'80s. Mesa Public Schools would cover utilities, and the city of Mesa would cover maintenance and programming of the pools. Without that funding source available, the district needs to make sure the money they're spending is only going towards their students. And so we're going to transition all of those utilities, so that's electric, water, and gas, the heaters, to the city of Mesa in name, and then charge Mesa Public Schools for their use. They're giving us a window of time to graduate into this. When we looked at this, we started this conversation in 2022. Mesa Public Schools has spent about $1.3 million on the utilities that year. And of that, their estimation is that their aquatics teams, the AIA's aquatics-based teams, were spending about $280,000 of that. And then there's other uses, the PE classes, the end of school year parties, other teams that use the pools. And so what we're going with is in year 1 of this agreement, Mesa Public Schools, we will be billing them $1 million. And it graduates to year 5 of us billing them $280,000. The idea being it will only cover the AIA aquatic sports. Any additional uses, which Mesa Public Schools, I believe, is evaluating whether to continue PE programs since not every junior high has a pool anymore. If they do any PE programming, if they have end of school year parties, if any other sports team needs to use the pool, it would just be we would bill them on, as outlined in the agreement.
There's also cost recovery from the club aquatics programs, the synchronized swimming and masters swimming and competitive age group club. I mean, does that make much of a dent?
Mayor, it's part of that, when we looked at the affiliated youth groups. So if it's youth-based sports, then we have a higher level of, or a lower rate that we charge them. less cost recovery on it. And if it's adult-based, it's a higher fee, more cost recovery. And so it does help cover it, and Mesa Public Schools has been charging a heat fee to warm the water in the winter months, and so we'll be taking over that aspect of it beyond the school swim teams. So those affiliated youth groups would still pay for heat. Those are part of the lane rental fee.
All right, thank you. Mr. Redia.
Are we taking over like all programming in pools then? Is it portion school driven, or are we assuming all the programming that happens in those pools?
Vice Mayor Heredia, we've always had the programming piece of it. So if you're
Okay.
it's PE classes that you're talking about, we are not offering PE classes for
That's
the
the schools, yeah.
And I suspect the schools will be
Yeah.
phasing that out of their
Okay.
curriculum.
So in the past, it's created a little bit of a conflict.
Yeah.
Because the school felt like paying for all the utilities, they could kind of just use it when we weren't programming it or something, which, there was sometimes
Correct.
conflicts, right? So this is helping save money for the school district, or at least they're going to pay for what how they actually use it, as opposed to just assume, before it was just like, oh, let's just split the cost up and we'll do the maintenance and you do the utilities. I think they've calculated now that what they pay in utilities is not what they think their usage will ultimately be.
Correct. And so they had the conflict of the funding that they receive from the state needs to go towards their student body and not general public.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make sure the public still has access to the pools and the school district can still do their program.
But Andrew, this might open up more programming opportunities for you at the pools. We'll talk a little bit about that.
It might. We're looking at additional lap swim time, fitness program, like the water aerobics, being able to put those uses in the pool during the school day if the schools aren't dropping in and out for other uses, PE classes
So now they're
primarily.
going to pay for when they use it, sorry. So we should know that. So that'll allow Andrew and her staff to say, okay, well, they're not using it like they use for PE classes. Now maybe we can bring in water aerobics or lap swim or whatever.
Right.
I think that's what I was getting to, like having more control of being
Yeah.
able to program even more activities at the schools. Is it just pools? I know in the past, we worked with them on ball fields and like soccer field or large swaths of grass fields. Is there a conversation on those as well? I think the past, we controlled some of that recreational kind of evening times. I'm not sure what we coordinated with them, but I know they took over that like several years ago, right? So is there a discussion on those fields?
Vice Mayor, in 2017, the schools took over scheduling those field uses. And the city still owned the light assets,
Yeah.
lights. This IGA update turns over ownership of the lights to the school district as well. So that will be completely at their purview to schedule and charge for those uses. And then the cooperative use piece of it is when they need to have a tournament at HOCAM, one of the things that they like to program in there, then we have a fee structure set up in order to do that. Otherwise, groups are going directly to the school district
Okay.
to book those fields.
Okay, all right.
I think that's an improvement that's long overdue, because Little League coaches would have to call one number to schedule the field and another number to get a turn on for the lights. And it sounds like we're catching up to that now.
Right, Mayor, it's all going to go through the school district on school properties.
Andrea, can I back up one slide? I forgot to bring up on the special events. How are things going, and what's the average time for approval for a permit for is it 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or something like that? For special
Councilmember Duff,
events?
we can't issue a permit until 20 days out from the event.
Okay,
So We are still requesting that people contact us at least 90 days before an event, just to lay out what all the expectations are, but I would say we don't have a backlog in processing them.
Okay.
It's still going through the steps of the process to do PD reviews or transportation reviews of events as needed, so that we have enough time to do those things.
Okay, so you feel you have enough staffing to process the load?
We do.
And the time that it takes is in the review process. Is there, I'm sure you're learning a lot as you've been doing this, ways to try to shorten that, be more efficient in how we execute that, or processes, or, I get complaints about the time.
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, so the advantage of people reaching out to us in advance is that we know it's coming in. So we've tried to make a pre-application meeting available so that we know it's coming in and they understand the review process. But the advantage of having the special events staff dedicated to processing these is they are advocating for those event organizers to make sure all the reviews are happening and they're not getting stuck in a queue or getting backed up. So we're actively watching those, moving them through the process, but it still does require a review and possibly a resubmittal if a traffic control plan needs to be revised and then reviewed again. But we're walking each of those applications through the system now.
Yeah. It's still an issue for the long process. Some people were hoping that, we've made an agreement for the alcohol licenses, to have an administrative review in those, so that it doesn't take such a long time to get it through council.
Coming.
That's coming. We're hoping, that would, if there was an alcohol license needed, that would shorten it, but may not. I don't know, because sometimes people who are doing events don't have everything all lined up and laid out 90 days out. So special events are important for the activation and engaging the community, and I'm so glad that people are, we're having more participation in that. So I'm glad that you're staffed to be able to handle this additional load, and just ask that we continue to look for how we can ease the process to make it a quicker amount of turnaround. Thanks.
Before we leave this slide, I just want to chime in that I'm a big fan of the special event office. I think it continues to get better. I think we need to do more partnerships and delegate some additional responsibility to DMA. So adding a 0.4 FTE, I think, is a great idea. Let's keep staffing it. But also, I think it'd be fun to make the argument that there's a lot of economic development attached with, activating downtown. There's going to be sales tax and other economic activity that's generated if we have on a regular basis, more weekends than not, something going on downtown. So it's, yes, it's a little more money, but I think it's setting the stage for a more vibrant downtown that's going to generate more revenue for the city. So.
Yeah, and we do special events across the whole city, so I want everybody to remember that. It's not just
okay.
downtown. So this is, Roger and team are all over the city. This last week, from Thursday night to Friday morning to Saturday morning, they were everywhere across the city, from District 5 to District 4 to District 2. So they cover the whole city in special events. So they're all over the place. But DMA is a good partner. I know that they are spending a lot of time with Roger planning out her schedule for the next year too.
Okay. And then tennis and pickleball, our revenue has gone through the roof. The popularity of reserving courts is amazing. And so this is taking some of that revenue and helping us offset with additional programming on the new pickleball courts that opened up at Autry, as well as helping us keep up with equipment replacement from the high use. So that's the 4 enhancement requests that we have in here. think, oh, I have one more about facilities. So are there any other questions about recreation?
I do have one, thank you. On slide 12, back to aquatics, so I was reading through it, so all the aquatics are on school properties, right?
They are.
Yeah, we don't have any owned. And so I think it makes perfect sense for us if they're going to reduce their programming. Is that what I'm understanding? That we take over some of their programming for our programs or not?
I think the way to look at it is, whatever decision they make on their programming is their decision. What they're trying to do is, they're saying is that they don't believe, they need to cut back. And they, as Andrea said, they need to show that the dollars, that before, they were just paying the utilities on all the pools, even during the summer when we would be having,
All our events?
yeah, general public showing up, they could be
Okay.
coming from anywhere, not necessarily from Mesa Public Schools. So this cleans it up, so it's just, they're gonna get billed per usage. Whenever they decide and come to Andrea, they're gonna get billed on certain rate. Whatever programmings, whether it's their swim teams, or if they choose to do physical ed or
PE
whatever, PE
classes,
class like
right.
that. Otherwise, it'll be our cost. We're gonna absorb it, and then we bill them for the usage. So they get to decide what the programming is. They'll have to make that decision on their own. But we think it'll give us an opportunity where, those times when they're not programming it, Andrew's gonna try to fill in that time. So,
Well, I think it makes sense, what I'm getting at, it makes sense for us taking over the utility part and billing them for what they use, and
Right.
even though it's on their properties.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have an IGA on it as well. That's just my thought. So thank you for that.
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Pillsbury.
Just so on that, with the IGA, we're starting with $1 million going down to the 280. So what if at the 5th year they realize they are spending way more than 280 or way less than 280? Are we sticking to that amount and then we're just, what does that look like?
Councilmember Spilsbury, it gets adjusted for inflation, but it is based on the teams that they have in place. So
Okay.
if if there was a different aquatic sport that they were offering, we would look at that.
Okay. I guess I'm asking, is there flexibility in
is that an
IGA?
estimate, Andrea, or is that a set number?
That was a set number based on their 2022 sports teams.
I'm just guessing within 5 years, lots of things could change higher or lower. So I just didn't know if that was something we're sticking to or if it can be changed as we go.
Right, right now it'll be adjusted just for inflation.
Okay.
And if there were a change in programming, we would need to go back and revisit
Okay,
it.
so we would need to go back and redo
So
the
Andrea, this is
IGA.
just for specifically though for the swim.
Yeah, for their
Swim,
swim,
dive,
dive, water polo.
Yes, the ones that I don't think every school has that.
And that's a defined time period. So it's,
So it's
we
from,
calculated based on usage.
Right, there might be like meets or special, I don't know, tournaments
I
that
see what you're
they
saying.
then host, or, I don't know. I could just see like some flexibility in that number, higher or lower. So I was just wondering how nailed down that IGA has to be.
right, the meets are included in that,
Okay,
the regular meet. So if it were something unusual, we would
you would
just
just
need to
bill
talk
it
through
over.
it.
Yeah, because it says any other district usage of the pools will be billed. So obviously, if it was over that, then we have in place for it. I guess my thought was maybe if they don't use the 280, are they still tied to the 280? But maybe that's plenty. I don't know. Okay, I guess we can figure that out.
Okay?
We have to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, then on facility maintenance, I mentioned an adjustment to the operating budget so that we can keep our infrastructure funding in place for equipment replacement and still fully fund the services that we offer through landscaping, custodial, the contracted services that we have. And so that's the 2.75 million, and that will help stabilize the budget, help us do a better job planning what the infrastructure replacement will be. In addition, I just wanted to mention the building additions that have come online. We're keeping an eye on those. In the past year, we've had about 500,000 square feet of building space come up as either a change in use or an addition to our vertical assets. So it might be something like when 59 South Hibbert comes online for the wellness center, the building, the office building on Centennial that the city just purchased, the parking garage that needs minimal maintenance, those types of things. We're continuing to talk through and keep an eye on when they come online, because they do require operation and maintenance dollars to keep the asset going and provide the contracted services to it.
So one of the things we probably haven't done a good job is we've added additional buildings or square footage. We haven't always added enough funding into this area. So we open up the post, right? Now all of a sudden we have all those responsibilities. And as well as, I'm sure it was Mr. Hirschberg who started this practice of stealing from the facilities to pay for his landscaping. Are you blaming him on that? So we're trying to reset this, rebalance it so that we're not. Here? Yes, he's here. So, but we're trying to make sure, the landscaping costs have gone up quite a bit, and we're kind of borrowing it from here. We're making sure that's fully budgeted, and then resetting this budget where it needs to be, and covering all the additional facilities and the cost increases, but there have been added square footage over the years too.
Of course.
Andrea, between all the facilities, all the parks, everything that you manage, what is that number?
We take care of about 500 sites. It's about 2,000 acres of land and about 7 million square feet. 7 million square feet of space.
I'll just say thank you.
It goes with great effort from my team that's sitting in the audience too. So we're all very dedicated to what we do.
During the last presentation last week, I think we started talking about climate action plan and the opportunities perhaps at our facilities and our fields to decrease the amount of irrigated turf. And there might be some, not just for climate action reasons, but there might be some cost savings that we could claim there. Is that worked into these? Are you anticipating doing that, and is that going to impact your budget?
Yes, Mayor, we are looking at non-functional turf reduction around the buildings too. And so we have some active projects that we're working on to reduce turf around the municipal building, 55 North Center, around Fire Station 201 in the landscape area, not the fire memorial area. And a few others were landscaping medians, those types of places. But the funding's through the climate action plan funding,
You'll
not,
see that.
not
Okay.
the
But it will
facilities
say,
budget.
over time, as we take these kind of projects on, whether it's landscaping, that'll save money on the landscaping costs, changing out the lighting, that saves on the utility costs. So there are little things we're trying to do that are going to help in incremental ways the cost for facilities.
Great.
All right,
Thank you.
we have one more.
That's it.
All right, thank you very much,
Thank
Andrea.
you.
Are we moving on to the next item, Mr.
Let's
Brady?
do, please.
All right, item 2B is a presentation and discussion on the Code Compliance Department budget.
And Mayor, I think, Karina, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time you've had an opportunity to present to council.
Yes.
So Karina is a true Mesa story. I want her just to give you a little highlight of her background with the city, because this is, we're very proud to have Karina as our co-director, but she's had a journey to get here. Where did you, tell us a little bit about, I think just for the council, give you a little background. How did you start with the city?
Okay, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. So I started, actually just celebrated my 25th anniversary last month.
Wow.
I started out in 1999 issuing building permits. Back then was known as building safety, not development services. I had the opportunity of moving around a little bit, got a couple of jobs there within the department, promoting within. Eventually became a building plans examiner. And then in 2008, I was part of the RIF. So, but I had the opportunity
I think
to
she
move
was
over.
laid off.
Yeah.
But I was fortunate to move over to code compliance. They allowed me that opportunity, so I went over to code compliance as a code compliance officer. I've been there since, had the opportunity to be an officer, progressed to a supervisor, and then led me to being a director now.
Thank you. She's a strong Mesa resident.
I am, born and raised. My dad built our house in 1973 here, so my family's here, plan to retire here, I live here, my family's, my kids, so
That's great.
it means a lot to be here.
Yeah,
It's great to be part of a great organization, and then be a Mason.
absolutely.
So it's a little bit about myself. So
Yeah.
anyways, so today I'd like to present to you my, the co-compliance budget for the 24-25 fiscal year. So without me being able to accomplish the things that I look to do and the things that we have done thus far, we have a great staff of men and women, co-compliance officers. But our public purpose and our main focus in co-compliance is we are looking to preserve, maintain, and strengthen both our communities, our neighborhoods, and our businesses. And a few ways that we look to do that is through our means of educating our citizens of Mesa, obtaining voluntary compliance, and engaging in our community. So three of the top priorities that we've identified in code compliance is first and foremost, we want to ensure code compliance. We are all about increasing our voluntary compliance and increasing our proactiveness amongst our code officers. That means conducting inspections prior to complaints coming in. And then we are also very involved in our communities. Our community engagement is a top priority for us. Educating our community and doing outreach. And we are looking to do some social media education, and we're going to be talking about that later. We're going to be partnering up with the PIO's office to do some outreach. And then lastly is our employee engagement. Again, we're a small, tight-knit group. We couldn't do what we do without the teamwork that we have amongst the code officers. So we are going to be looking to do some more team building exercises and engage with our employees by doing our activities that we typically do, our potlucks and luncheons and stuff that we do with them. So this is just one of the matrix that I wanted to share. There's two of them that we have. This is showing our code case voluntary compliance. Again, we are focusing on voluntary compliance over enforcement. As you can see, over the last couple of years, we've stayed pretty steady at 80%. We are always looking at other ways to expand that voluntary compliance, but this is one of our focuses that we have in code compliance. Another matrix that I wanted to share was our response time to code complaints. We are complaint driven, but again, we are looking to increase our proactiveness to hopefully get those complaints down. As you can see right now, our target date is about 3 business days. We advertise about 3 to 5 business days for response time. We want to be as responsive as we can to our complaints. As you can see, we stay about 2 days. Overall, we're doing a really good job at responding to those complaints. So we're pretty proud of that responsiveness that our code officers are able to get out there from the time that the complaint comes in, how we're responding to that. So that's 2 days from the time it comes in for us to get out there and respond to that complaint.
I have a question. About what percent are complaint-driven versus proactive? What's your split as far?
Mayor and Councilmember Duff, I don't have that number for you today,
No,
but I
don't-
definitely will get
I
that
don't
for
need
you.
the exact number. I just wondering if you had a feel for if there were, what the split was on that.
Yeah, the difference between complaints and,
But Karina, when an officer goes out to respond to a complaint, if they're out there and they're driving around, they see similar types of violations, they'll make note of that, right? They're not just only looking at what's in front of them.
yes, Ms. Brady, we do a 360. So typically when we get a complaint, we like to do what we call a 360, where we look around within the vicinity for the same type of violations so that we're being fair with our complaints.
Mr. Freeman.
Hi, Karina. It seems like we just had a conversation the other day about this complaint process, but I think what's important is once the complaint comes in, and whoever the complainant is maybe a return message to that we are here, we've received your complaint, and so we're, working through the process, because I've had several in the last few weeks that said, well, I don't know if code's here because the property is still like it is, nothing's transpired. So I think just some type of recognition for that would really help drive the part that, well, code is here again, and not to be redundant. So what's your perspective of that?
So Mayor and Councilmember Freeman, yes, I recall that conversation, and yes, that is something we are looking to improve in our process. We obviously have a notification process, but we do have a couple that get through the cracks that obviously if it's not a complaint driven through our portal, or they're leaving their email address so that they're automatically getting updates as we progress through the case, then we are, there's some that we're just not aware that they wanted that initial contact or that progression. So we are looking at ways to improve that communication with our complainants so that they are aware of where we are with the case. Some of our cases prolong longer than we would like them to be. So then that drives that, perception that we aren't doing anything or we're not doing enough when we're probably working it in the background, but we aren't just keeping them up to date. So we are going to be exploring ways to get that communication better for our citizens.
I think that would help all of us. And I think some of the cases are complex in sometimes you have to work with the police department, fire department, and other departments just to help resolve some of the code complaints. So I know a couple of them have fallen through the cracks. I guess they got closed inadvertently, and so then you have to reopen them. But yeah, I think just responding to the complainant, if possible, just allows some type of process to know, hey, we're here again. So thank you for looking into that.
Yes. Okay, and then moving on, part of our priorities, again, is our community engagement. So this is something we really focus on. We do what we call team up to cleanups. We do a couple of team up to cleanups. These projects that we do twofold. We do ones with the code compliance staff as a whole unit where we identify neighborhoods, where we take a morning, and we do anywhere between 200 to 250 homes in one morning. And then we do special ones where we team up and collaborate with other departments. So in this photograph, this is one that we did as a partnership with the Mesa PD recruits. So thank you to them for all their hard work. Our staff and PD recruits came out one morning and did accomplish this property. As you can see, we removed about 5 tons of vegetation and debris on this property. We're looking to increase these along the lines with our team up to cleanups that we do in our neighborhoods. We're looking to increase those to this next fiscal year.
Karina, are there other opportunities? Do you engage with our volunteer group that we have in the city of Mesa? Sometimes if someone's not able to do something, and they have a code compliance, especially when it gets to enforcement, and they physically cannot take care of the issue and don't have the money or whatever. Do we have beyond the team up to clean up, do we have a volunteer base that we use on occasion for those situations?
Yes, Mayor and Councilmember Duff, yes, we do. We do partner with Neighborhood Services for their volunteer services.
Okay.
So we do direct and we do coordinate when those folks are identified and they need those volunteer services. We do our own with our team itself, and then we do look for those other, whether it's Boy Scouts, whether it's a church group looking for some work to be done on a property, we do partner up with community services for that, neighborhood services.
Great. And I assume there's no grants or anything available for it? Sometimes cost is an issue for someone
Mayor
to
and
take
Vice,
care of it.
Councilmember Duff, I'm not sure, but I can definitely check into that with you for that. I'm not exactly sure if there are grants that are done through neighborhood services. Code doesn't have any, but we definitely can explore that.
Do you still do the beautification projects? You go into the you identify a neighborhood that needs help, and then you just work with all the neighbors. There was projects you would do. You'd identify a neighborhood that needed a lot of help. You'd get the team in there. They go door to door, talk to I'm sure you're familiar with it. I'll
Yes,
describe
so,
it.
Mayor and Councilmember Duff, yes, so we don't call it beautification,
Oh.
we do it kind of evolved into the Team Up to Clean Up.
Okay.
I think the beautification project might be done through community services or neighborhood services, but our Team Up to Clean Up is pretty much the same as what you just described, where we identify a neighborhood, we'll take about those 250 houses, and we'll conduct inspections that one morning. But those are extended projects where it's like a 30-day instead of our typical 14 days. So we advertise that we're coming, and then we conduct those inspections, and then we provide dumpsters at the end of the
Right,
project.
right.
So that's our beautification projects that we
Okay,
do. but we-
Neighborhood projects. Okay, but you no longer do that. Okay,
Yeah,
all right. Thank you.
yeah. Okay, and another way that we engage into our community, we just started doing a couple of these this past year. We're looking to do a few more. It's under our emergency abatement program. Some people will call it Clean and Lean. We did a few of these. These are properties that we have exhausted all of our resources to gain compliance. So at the top, you'll see a residential property, a before and after. And then we typically try to stay with these being residential properties, but we did happen to do one for a commercial property that was out in East Mesa. And as you can see, it had been broken into, so we ended up having to board it and then fence it off to prevent anyone else getting into that building. And as you can see, as far as code compliance expenditures, we have a very small budget. We always stay steady around a $2 million mark. A majority of our expenditures is for fleet and personnel costs. For the 23-24 estimate, we were at 1.9, and our proposed budget is 2.4. And there's just a slight increase in that because we were granted 2 full-time employees a few months ago. And then we had to replace some of our vehicles, some of our aging trucks. So we have a couple of the new Ford Lightnings on order. So that's the difference in the proposed budget from the 1.9 to the 2.4. So we did identify, co-compliance identified some reductions in our department. We explored reducing the use of our process server that we utilize to serve our citations. However, we came across some special funding from the city that receives royalties from this home warranty services program. And we've been fortunate enough to be able to use some of our expenses and offset our general fund to utilize this special program funding. And we're going to be shifting and dedicating these funds that we've been granted to do our community outreach that we're going to be partnering up with the PIO's office. We are looking to add an admin support. Currently, I only have one for the 15 code officers that I have. And then the other ones is our vehicle purchases, and then we're going to be shifting all of our fleet maintenance costs from the general fund over to the special program funding.
So Mayor and Council, how long ago, 12 years ago, many years ago, the city entered into a program with, I think the title is Home Service Warranty. So you'll get in the mail a solicitation to sign up for a program so that if your sewer line, I think specifically, were to need repair that's on the private side of the meter, then this was a way to have, it's kind of like insurance, I guess. You pay a fee, and then if it breaks, they'll come out and fix it. And it was endorsed by National League of Cities. It was a program we started. Over time, that program has seen a lot of subscriptions. And frankly, I've heard feedback from homeowners where they've had to call up and call in for that service, and they've been very prompt, and they hired local plumbers to come out and fix their line. And so over time, we originally, when this was set up, we did identify some of the offsetting expenses or using those funds specifically for code compliance. What we didn't probably do is stay on top of like how much that was continued to accumulate as the popularity of that program continued. So we had a limited number of expenditures that were being used or being covered by the fees we received from the warranty company. we determined we have additional funds, and so instead of making reductions, what we've done is shifted expenses that were otherwise being recovered by the general fund are now being covered by this fee. It's been in play. I think initially we were a little hesitant about, is this going to be a long-term, how much do we rely upon this resource? But now I think it's been 10 years at least, that we're like, I guess it's proven that it's going to be ongoing. And so we feel now comfortable that we can redirect these expenses and improvements, additional resources for code from the general fund and have them be covered by this fee we receive from the service line warranty group.
Ms. Pillsbury.
So I was a little bit surprised when I saw this slide because I didn't know this was happening. And the last thing I want to do is take money away from code compliance, because I love code compliance, because a lot of the things we deal with as council members get fixed through code compliance. So that's not the point of my comment. But I do think that it totally confuses people when they see the City of Mesa logo and they think that it's a City of Mesa program. I think staff has dealt with some of calls from people who are always confused about it. I have been confused. I think every single person who lives in Mesa has gotten hundreds of these letters from the home warranty services. So is this a contract? Is this something like, do we have it for a certain number of years?
I don't know what term we're in now, but we sign up for, multiple years at a time.
And can you tell us how much money, or are you not wanting to put out an amount?
We collect, I think right now the number is
Like, are we talking-
120,000.
I think right now the balance.
No, the 120,000 a year.
120,000 a year.
120,000 a year.
Yeah. So it doesn't cover, but what we're covering here is mostly fleet vehicle purchases, fleet maintenance, vehicle purchases going forward. And we felt comfortable enough that it's going to cover, and those are significant costs to the general fund. But now we're also including, additional support staff,
Right.
as well as this pilot program we're doing for.
That's a
community
lot to
outreach.
cover with $120,000. $120,000 doesn't seem like it would go that far, but I don't know. That is just my thought. Is that worth the confusion that we provide our residents by not knowing where this program's coming from and thinking that it's a City of Mesa program? That's my only comment. But I don't know what our contract is, so I don't know how much longer we're tied into it and if we could even change it. So I'm just going to leave that.
I'll just tag on to that. I think our staff does really well in explaining the program, because when we travel to NLC, the home warranty group is there and they recognize Mesa is there and they go, thank you, Mesa, for participating in the program. And when it comes into our council office, we go, yeah, it's not sponsored by Mesa, but you're welcome to use the contractor. And we explain it could be for your sewer or septic or even your water line too, if your water line fails. So I think there's two or three
Yeah, that
different
sounds
ways.
right. That sounds right.
So, the contract is broad, but it gives a sense of security for those. For a minimal amount is like, an additional insurance, because I know if I were to do on my insurance policy and do a claim, it'd be expensive, and then I wouldn't be able to get the rebate I get every year. And so I think this provides additional avenue for the residents in Mesa to have this home warranty, and I kind of like it.
I don't claim to be any insurance guru or expert. My understanding is that your homeowner's insurance will cover things in your home, but they're not going to cover things from the street through your yard to your home. And I live in a very old neighborhood, and I strongly advocate I have this service and always have, because those water and sewer lines from the street to your home sometimes are very, very old, especially in my neighborhood, and I've had neighbors who had to replace those, and it's tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's not a small little few $100s that you can absorb. So I think, especially if you have an old neighborhood, or you live in an old neighborhood, it's a consideration. I don't want to advertise for them or something like that, but I really feel bad for residents that don't know they don't have any insurance coverage on that stretch, and then if it hits, it's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars. So it's a consideration to, I think it's a good idea. The city kind of prompts people to think about that service line, those service lines. It's inexpensive. I cover both mine and, I don't want to quote the dollar. It was very inexpensive and there's no deductible. I've had to use it before and they were immediate and didn't cost me. I love it and I don't lose sleep at night worried about the sewer and water lines, the service line from the street to the house. So.
Are they the only like company or provider that does this? Like, have we ever been asked by a different
I'm not aware
company
we've ever
that
been
does
approached
it?
by anyone else. I don't, Scott, do you know? I don't know.
I just don't know that much about it, so that's why I'm asking.
Again, I'll say again.
Other than getting the letters all the
Those who use it
time.
have always been very pleased with the service, so.
Because they follow through with it and
Yeah,
take
it's
care,
not-
save them a
yeah,
lot
I
of
think we've
money.
evaluated that multiple times and said, okay, we don't want to be connected with someone who's not going to fall through, but
Right.
as of this point, I think we've only, once people get past, it's the people that are getting the mailer and don't know what to do with it, that's the most complaints. It's the opposite from those who actually have to use it.
But so at some point, 10 years ago or 12 years ago, we decided that this was a service that enough people needed that we
One of those
justified
moments where
using our
council members
logo.
came back from an NLC
From
conference and
NLC.
said, "Well, we have a great idea
Well,
for
it feels like a lot of, I mean, if, there's tons of companies or vendors that would love to use our logo on their things if it was something that, I mean, benefited their
charge them
company,
too.
right? And we would
charge
charge them too. I mean, so, I don't know. Okay.
We do that with
We'll
the
we'll let the expert here tell us.
Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, I was just going to add on, as Mr. Brady said, it was about 10 to 12 years ago that council had asked staff to look into this, and it was because of the relationship with the National League of Cities, and several other Valley cities, including Phoenix and others, have the same partnership with this company through the National League of Cities, and so we have received pretty positive feedback from the residents over the course of that time, so we've just continued to re-up our agreement. We were trying to, Mayor and Councilmember Spilsbury, try to find out the exact term that we're in right now. We don't have that at our fingertips. I'm glad to get that to you, but it has been a partnership that, based on that feedback that we've received, have continued to renew that partnership.
Okay. Should we keep moving on? along?
Yes.
Okay. I know we're running behind here, so. Why don't we talk about the education campaign? Why don't we skip to that part if that's
Yep.
okay?
So, Mayor and council members, so we are going to be kicking off a 12-month education campaign to our public and our citizens of Mesa. We are partnering up with the PIO's office, so we've only done a few social media posts, as you can see, on utilizing the City of Mesa's Facebook page. But the goal of this project is to be more proactive with some of our seasonalities. We find that weed season during the summer, some of our spring cleaning activities that happen. So the goal of all of this is to get the outreach to the citizens of Mesa to get ahead of those violations, to hopefully increase that voluntary compliance, and to also promote co-compliance in a positive light, not only just in a negative light, what our programs are and what our services are and what we provide. So this will be a proactive, positive message to the public, and we are going to be relying on the PIO's office to assist us and 3 different approaches on how we can accomplish that. So some of that special funding is going to be able to provide what we will hope to accomplish with this. So as you can see, these are the different approaches. These are the 3 different approaches we're going to be looking at. Digital, print, and PR. Doing some bi-weekly social media posts. We've already kicked that off a little bit, but doing it in English and Spanish, and then utilizing the Mesa Tribune, and then doing some PR through the Mesa 11 billboards and some news release and media pitches. And then part of our budget adjustment, again, is just to obtain that administrative assistant support. Again, I only have 1 admin support for the entire team. Again, we have 15 code officers. I've got 2 supervisors and 1 civil hearing judge. So right now, my admin support, she's needs some assistance. So we're hoping with this, that this admin support can assist the code officers with processing their civil citations, doing the judgments, filing the liens, participating in our civil hearing procedures, proceedings, that's scheduling and monitoring those proceedings, and then also preparing and overseeing like the collections of our fines and fees that we actually do collect when we do have to cite. And then lastly, this is just our wrap-up and the adjustment summary. And as you can see, what we were looking to utilize the special programming funds for. The educational outreach portion, we're looking to, right now, utilize about $40,000 on that. And then the one-time and the ongoing expenses to have that administrative support assistant. And that's
And Mayor and Council, Councilor Spilsbury, it looks like we have an opportunity to renew the current contract till August of 2025.
And that comes through council?
Yeah, we'll have to, I think we only have, we have a current term in this August, but we can renew it till August of 2025.
Oh, okay.
So, and I think it does make, I'm assuming that means we probably have to come back to council in 2025. We'll check.
So without council action, we can renew it till 2025, and at that point, it would require council action.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I think it seems like we did 5-year terms, but I'll check on that too.
all right. All right, Karina, thank you.
Thank you.
Great first impression. Good job.
I had some work to do.
No, well done.
Thank you.
You bet. Next, item 3 is to acknowledge receipt of a committee minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Ms. Pillsbury and Mr. Heredia. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. That motion passes unanimously. Next is current events and conferences attended. Council members, do you have anything you'd like to share with us? Ms. Pillsbury?
Just real quick, because I know we're running late. I just wanted to thank everyone for helping with my Easter spring breakfast, specifically the East Valley United Black Firefighters for doing all of the breakfast. Tracy with the Idea Museum brought out all the arts and crafts, and then our Parks and Rec Fun and Fitness crew brought those foam blocks that were a huge hit. And then Nancy Vasquez brought our Easter bunny. So we had almost 600 people attend. It was a huge hit. Thank you to all of the city people that came and to support it as well. It was really fun. So thanks for everyone that helped with that. And the biggest thank you to Melissa Hollenbeck for planning the whole dang thing. So thank you.
How many eggs?
We did 6,000 eggs.
6,000.
6,300 to be exact. And they went just as fast as 3,000 went last year. So
Nice.
it was great. Fun time.
All right. Council, other announcements or calendar items? Ms. Duff?
Sure. Do you want to talk about Caesar Shellfish event?
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I know it because I won't be me talking. So okay. Last Thursday, I stopped by the Red Mountain PD Community Resource Fair in East Maine. I was concerned if a lot of people would find it. It's a little bit outside of the reach of the light rail, but about 400 people attended. Is serve resources for people who are homeless or struggling. And there's a lot of vendors. Thank you to all the community partners out there helping people, and it was well attended and well appreciated. That night I also attended the Hispanic Leadership Institute. They had a government day, and I was there to talk about the city government, Lorraine Austin about the state government. She's our state representative here. and Ron Williams and talking about running a campaign. I also attended Dining for Dreams at El Rancho. It's our commercial kitchen run by Local First AZ, and they teach people how to do their business plan for running a restaurant or a catering business. They do a Dining for Dreams is actually having a dinner prepared by those chefs as a fundraiser, and those graduates will eventually have the opportunity to be in our restaurant incubator in downtown. So it's a great preview of what's possible and what's to come. I love that program. On Saturday, Red Mountain PD, they're very busy this week, did the annual Reed Park Easter event. hundreds and hundreds of people attended from the local neighborhoods. It's well attended. Thank you very much for all your work in making it a successful event. It gets bigger and better every year. And thank you to our community partners, including Walmart, which donated some bikes to kids who, it was their first bike, and it was very exciting for them. And all the activities around us. So thank you for everybody who put that together and attended, and it was well appreciated by the community. Also, last week I mentioned the Arizona Forward Environmental Excellence Awards, and I mentioned the Post receiving one for adaptive reuse, but Cul-de-sac, which is in Tempe, actually received one also for public art. And I just wanted to mention that because Cul-de-sac is the partner that we're approving tonight for the Site 17 development. It's just an example of the way that they engage and do use public art and very community oriented. And I appreciate that they received that award and will be coming to Mesa. And that's about it.
Thank you.
And
Mr. Redio.
I'll mention on Friday, we had the Cesar Chavez Day event. Last year, we named part of Broadway, Cesar Chavez, I think Avenue, is it Avenue? Street. Calle, oh, there we go, Calle. And this year, we honored Cesar Chavez with a plaque. And I unfortunately wasn't born in Mesa, but I was born in Yuma, which Chavez is a former Yuman who was born there. And it's just and the importance of him being born and raised in Arizona, and worked on the farm worker cause, but overall civil rights for people of color. It was a big thing for especially my family who marched with us, Cesar Chavez in the early 70s, and many people that were part of that movement and beyond now. And so most of us were there honoring. His grandson was there as well from the Cesar Chavez Foundation, honoring the plaque and the volunteers that make our city go in these events. So appreciate all the support there.
Thank you. I'm excited. I just learned that people from Yuma are called humans.
Humans, yeah.
That's a great.
Humans,
That's a
yeah.
great name for. Yeah.
Humans.
Well, we're a little behind, so I'll pass on talking about our calendar. But before we adjourn, anything else to discuss, Council? Mr. Brady, what does our schedule of future events look like?
Thank you, Mayor. We'll keep rolling out budget conversations on Thursday. So we'll see you bright and early for that at 7:30. And just a reminder, this week will be our first public open house on Building Mesa's Future, talking about the bond programs, bond projects, and that will be, April 3rd from 6 to 7 p.m. at Eastmark High School cafeteria.
Very good. Those are important. Hope we get some good turnout.
And District 4 is Thursday night at the Post at 6 o'clock.
Great. All right, that concludes this agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Ms. Pillsbury and Mr. Reddy. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We are adjourned, and we will reconvene in just a minute or two upstairs.